If you're tired of being censored on social media, join 60s.net. It's black owned, black operated, and black moderated, and we make sure it stays a safe space for us to talk about all things black culture. We also got some cool gear like the FDM cotton crew neck, the Fearless Ancestors tee, hats, and more. Check us out at 60s.net.
Hey girl, why are you so sad?
I just got banned from Twitter again.
Should have been on 60s.net. Ah.
Welcome once again to the beatzillapdx official show. I'm your host, beatzillapdx officially. All right. So welcome. Once again, if you are new here, please hit the like and share button. If you have not already subscribed to this broadcast, please hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. Hit the word all so you will be notified every time I upload a video or go live. Like we are right now. Let me see who I got in the house. Alrighty. Yes, indeed. Queen Adia, Pride and Bentley, Desmond Works, Judah Queen, Nine Tails, Teliana, is that how you say that? Shawana Stevens, of course, Pride and Bentley in the house. Got my bracelet. S. Mont, what's going on? Silent D Productions. All right. Oh, well, I definitely understand. CH464, welcome, welcome. All right. Thank you very much. Black Gravity, what is going on, my brother? What is going on? Bryce Barnett, welcome. Conscious Outlaw, B1, Black First Always. So welcome, everyone, here to the midweek report. Got a few things to talk about. Some interesting things to hit on today. But mostly Joe Biden. And, we've been hitting on this topic of the ever-failing system of white supremacy that is crumbling before our very eyes, imploding from within itself. And they've been sending a lot of dog whistles to try to circle the wagons. So we will go further into kind of that understanding today. But first, recently, someone hit me up about what I felt about, I don't even know why they would ask me such a question, but Dominique Devereaux, how are you doing, sir? The jab. So they were asking me about the venom. And I really don't have an opinion on it. Like I've said before, if that's something you elect to do, then you go do it. For me, and my common sense, my own behavior behind it may not be the same as someone else's who would listen to everything that they hear. So, with that being said, I'm going to address a few things because I don't address medical situations here, but I do address the money. So, since you asked, let's see, I think we'll start here. So let's start here, shall we? Actually, wait, no. Yeah, I'm going to start this, and then I'm going to play a little short series of clips, and then we'll go into the next one. And then we'll, I think my point will be proven by the time I'm done.
Because it was developed in a lab doesn't mean it's good for you. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 5 terrifying big pharma facts.
Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
Let's get one thing straight. We live in an age of medical marvels, and pharmaceutical research has undoubtedly saved and changed the lives of countless individuals. But wherever there's money involved, the top priority is usually profit margins and making sales. So we're peeling off the label and reading the fine print as we explore the darker side of big pharma. Number 5, pharmaceutical trials don't necessarily test the important stuff. There's a problematic question one needs to ask when administering, receiving, or considering any sort of medical treatment. Does this approach address the root cause of the problem or just the symptoms that stem from it? According to a 2015 Johns Hopkins University study, various drugs used to treat diabetes have been proven to lower blood sugar quite effectively, but are often brought to market on those grounds alone. Such trials, approved by the FDA, failed to consider whether a drug that reduces high blood sugar, a symptom of diabetes, will necessarily reduce the long-term effects associated with the disease, such as strokes. To borrow the words of Dr. Mark Hyman, quote, "It's like taking the batteries out of a smoke detector instead of trying to find the fire." Treating surrogate symptoms can prove a deadly approach to medicine. Number 4, many clinical trials go unpublished, often the critical ones. The sad reality is, at the end of the day, people are only interested in results, and the pharmaceutical industry is no exception. But when it comes to research intended to evaluate the effectiveness of a particular drug, a lack of results should never be ignored. Sadly, according to Ian Chalmers, co-founder of the Cochrane collaboration, the standard publication and peer review system used to share medical research contains an inherent bias that results in roughly half of all clinical trial findings going unpublished. Of trials resulting in positive correlations, 73% are published. For those with negative or neutral findings, only 41%. If you're testing a certain drug and come up with no proof of the desired effect, that might be statistically insignificant, but it also speaks volumes about the effectiveness of the product. Number 3, after the trials, we hardly evaluate drug effectiveness. Alright, so during the clinical trial phase, we tend to overwhelmingly report the good news about a potential drug, while tests undermining its efficacy are casually swept under the rug. But surely once everyone starts taking the drug, specialists and GPs will quickly notice if the drug is ineffective. Sadly, no. Think about it. If your doctor prescribes you a medication and it doesn't work, you try something else. But what if that's happening to everyone? According to Marty McCary, a surgeon, best-selling author, and advocate for greater transparency in the medical system, there is no system in place for measuring the performance of a drug across the board once it gets approved. Unless serious, previously unreported side effects show up, second thought is never given to the drug's actual effectiveness beyond the trial period. Number 2, pharmaceutical trials cherry-pick test subjects. We've already talked about the publication bias, but what about the participant bias? You, yes you, can theoretically participate in clinical trials. But what's the criteria? Must you be a non-smoker, have perfect vision, fall into the ideal BMI range, and have essentially no medical history worth mentioning? Pharmaceutical trials can't lie about their numbers, but they can limit their tests to the ideal demographics in order to get the best results. According to a 2009 study published in the American Journal of...
Wow. Okay. Now, did you catch that part? So even for their so-called studies, they can tailor make the demographic to which they're even going to study. So if you have 15 old sick people and say, we did a study of this many and you got this, well, you knew they were all sick. This is game. But I'm glad that, just showing you what's out there,
Psychiatry, less than 1 in 4 people taking citalopram, a common antidepressant, would have actually been eligible for the clinical trials behind it. Women are often underrepresented or excluded entirely from trials, which has historically resulted in many unforeseen complications when the drug was later prescribed to them. Number 1, pharmaceutical-sponsored studies result in more favorable findings. And so we come full circle, back to the almighty dollar. Clinical trials aren't cheap. No scientific research is. But sadly, all too often, only those parties with a vested interest in the outcome of the research are willing to foot the bill. Again, researchers aren't going to falsify their results. But research teams running trials sponsored by pharmaceutical companies have been found to statistically yield results in favor of the company's interest, more so than their financially independent counterparts. According to Lisa Barrow, co-chair of the Cochrane collaboration, it's no small difference. She claims that an industry-funded study is more likely to produce positive results by a margin of 30%. Furthermore, a 2010 review...
So again, like I said, I don't give medical advice or medical opinions, but I can give you my opinion on how I see business. So, if something is being put in my direction for the sake of whatever they say, I have to weigh in my own mind, is this about a financial gain or is this actually about me? Well, let me see if I got that picture here. Let me go ahead and finish playing this.
A study published by German science journal Deutsches Ärzteblatt International found evidence that companies influence study protocols in favor of their desired outcome. Do you agree?
Oh no, wrong number. Now, their desired outcome, here it is. Check that out. There's a desired outcome for you right there. Just look at the scale of the years. Yeah, I'll say you got a desired outcome, all right. When you can flip over $1 billion, I wonder what coincides with them years right there. Huh. I mean, man.
With our picks, check out these other great clips from Watch Mojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest video.
So again, to answer questions on my opinion, I don't have a medical opinion because I am not a medical doctor. My background is in finance and common sense. So if I'm looking at a common sense aspect of it, well, then I, like I said, have to weigh that in the balance. Is there a financial reason? Or, who knows? But when you look at the numbers I just shown you, I mean, hey, maybe they do care about people and they were just blessed by coincidence. Who am I to say? But let's take a look at something that seems to be coming down the pike. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and I'm gonna turn my camera off here.
Scary.
Listen to this.
I don't care what color you are, black, white, orange.
No, wrong one. Check this out.
Made by MC10, and it has an antenna and some sensors embedded in it. And what we plan to do is...
Okay. Now peep that. Now here. Did you catch that, y'all? Interesting.
Well, here, I'll let you hold it. Would you like to hold it?
I'll hold it.
Okay. So, this...
You guys see it?
This pill has a small chip inside of it with a switch. It also has what amounts to an inside-out potato battery. When you swallow it, the acids in your stomach serve as the electrolyte.
As they do.
And they power it up, and the switch goes on and off. And it creates an 18-bit ECG-like signal in your body, and essentially your entire body becomes your authentication token. Yes, this is true. Okay?
Okay, but...
Okay, so, yeah, family, let me turn this camera on one time. So we're going to do that one more time. And, this ain't fake. This ain't fake. Back to it, shall we?
Well, here, I'll let you hold it. Would you like to hold it?
I'll hold it.
Okay. So, this...
You guys see it?
This pill has a small chip inside of it with a switch. It also has what amounts to an inside-out potato battery. When you swallow it, the acids in your stomach serve as the electrolyte.
As they do.
And they power it up, and the switch goes on and off. And it creates an 18-bit ECG-like signal in your body, and essentially your entire body becomes your authentication token. Yes, this is true. Okay?
Okay, but...
Okay, so wait. So it's really true. So what this means is that becomes my first superpower. I really want this superpower. It means that my arms are like wires, my hands are like alligator clips. When I touch my phone, my computer, my door, my car, I'm authenticated in.
All right. And there's more, part 2.
Like, I want that.
So we're not shipping that right away.
Yeah, no. We're not shipping that right away. But it sounds like...
this is FDA cleared?
So here's the thing. This This is not science fiction. This pill was actually made by a company called Proteus, and they've developed it for medical applications. That pill has been CE stamped and cleared by the FDA. You can take 30 of those per day for the rest of your life.
And then what happens? Does your heart beat change? Does your
We can just tell that
you-
you've taken the pill. I mean, the medical
Yeah.
the medical
Does
application.
Google now know everything I do and everywhere I go? Because let's face it,
Here, can
we like
just,
you guys, but you're from Google.
Just give him some water and let him take
So
that pill
I-
right now.
Thanks.
Maybe Dennis, let me ask you, does Larry make you take one of these?
It's optional. So we
Optional.
so we actually have demoed this working and authenticating a phone.
Yes, indeed, Onika, pulling everything out but the kitchen sink. This is about 100% control. And, so this is down to, for those who have seen the latest Matrix movie, another thing that they were showing you in that movie is they could tell when Neo took the pill or not. They just identified how they could do that, which is kind of interesting when you think about it. The Matrix is literally supposed to be a very futuristic movie, but yet it's talking about something current. Check this out.
You need to listen to this. I don't care
Pro-
what color you are, black, white, orange, purple. You need to fucking listen to this.
I am the lab science director. I know a thing or two about food science. Now, what they have invented, when I say they, I'm talking about the genetic engineers, not only have they found a way to put these genetically engineered traits into food crops, they've now found a way to cause food crops to grow RNA fragments that can be specifically targeted like bioweapons to interfere with the physiological processes of targeted species that might eat the food. Now, this technology is called RNA interference technology. It's relatively new compared to GMOs, relatively new. It's being touted now as a technology to eliminate the use of pesticides because what they're saying is they can cause a corn crop to grow RNA fragments that will kill the insects that eat the corn without having to use pesticides like toxic chemicals that overload the insect nervous system and kill it from a nervous system breakdown and so on.
And thank you, Pride Bentley, for posting that on your Instagram. Again, that right there doesn't even have to do with the medical field. That has to do with the food. And still, once again, the same old devil at work. So if we can't get it in you one way, we will get it in you another. Here, eat this tomato with this nanobot in it. This is where we're going, people. Pure evil, oh yeah, like it. Absolutely. I wonder if them insects, it always makes me wonder every time I see, flies and gnats. It's like, is that a drone? I mean, man, I put nothing past these people. Nothing. Okay, so with this being said, check this out. He said Bill Gates is the brains behind this operation. Not quite, but he is an intricate part, but he's still a puppet. He's a powerful puppet, but Bill Gates is a puppet. Yeah, please believe it. He don't call no shots. Sebastian Shaw. Yeah, absolutely, brother. Yeah, he's a powerful individual for a lot of people under him, but he is not the high man on the totem pole by any stretch of the imagination. He follows orders. Now, you got to know whose orders. Now, what he did do is found a way to align himself with the shot callers, shall we say. So check it out.
Most of you would say it's fate. But in our world, a pandemic-ridden world, it's big pharma, a bunch of companies that make vaccines and medicines. They decide who lives and who dies. And that makes them dangerously powerful. Let me explain how. Omicron cases are rising. There is talk of vaccines and boosters. By all indications, booster shots will be a regular feature in our lives. And we know who stands to gain. Big pharma. They're rolling in money. They're blackmailing governments. They're fueling inequity. They're setting arbitrary terms and conditions, jacking up prices, pushing secret deals. And yet we have little choice but to take their vaccines. That is the kind of power they wield. Which is why I say, in today's world, big pharma decides whether you live or die. How did they acquire this power? How dangerous can they be? And why is no government stopping them? That's what we'll discuss today. Hello and welcome to Gravitas Plus. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay and I have some stories for you. We'll start with the story of Martin Shkreli. This man, he used to be America's most hated man. What did he do? Sold this drug, Daraprim, an important weapon in the fight against malaria. Also another serious infection caused by HIV. There was a time when this drug, Daraprim, cost $13.50. Then Martin Shkreli entered the scene. He bought the manufacturing license for Daraprim and jacked up prices by 5,000%. You heard that right, 5,000. So the medicine that sold for $13.50 started selling for $750. People were...
And I remember when this happened, too. Because everybody was like, that's crazy. And, you know, he ought to be ashamed of himself for doing something like that. But this is the type of world we are in. And these type of individuals are all out there. You know, don't get it twisted. You said the woman really brings good. She said, you said you hate her, huh? Is it her accent you can't get over? Because her accent is pretty heavy. But, I mean, she be dropping some news, though.
Furious. Patients, doctors, lawmakers, everyone protested. But Shkreli could not care less.
I know you're smiling, but I'm very serious, sir. And I truly believe, are you listening?
Yes.
Eventually, the law prevailed. Shkreli was convicted for securities fraud. Sent to 7 years in jail. Recently, he paid $40 million to settle allegations of price gouging. And this is a man who did not even make drugs for a living. He managed a hedge fund. When asked about the price gouging, he said, I would have raised the prices higher and made more profits. Now, you have to understand where he comes from. As a hedge fund manager, his primary duty was to make money for his investors. Shkreli was driven by profit. He represented a system that puts profits above lives, a system that wants to make money off illnesses, and a system that influences everyone. I'm talking about Big Pharma. They have unrivaled power, the power to push dangerous drugs into the market, the power to influence politicians and regulators, and the power to maximize profits at the cost of patients. How does Big Pharma do this? With tools like misinformation. Case in point, America's opioid epidemic. What is an opioid? It is a painkiller. It affects you just like heroin. It blocks the feeling of pain, which is why it is habit-forming. It's easy to get hooked to opioids. Earlier, doctors in the US kept a tight watch on opioid prescriptions. But in the 1990s, Big Pharma sensed an opportunity. They began pushing an idea, a simple idea. They said, opioids are not addictive. Big Pharma sent sales representatives to doctors across the US. Their mission was quite simple: convince doctors, make them prescribe heavier doses of opioids. The masters of this art were Purdue Pharma. Their opioid drug was called OxyContin. Purdue claimed OxyContin did not cause addiction. It was a lie. Purdue never held a trial to prove OxyContin was less addictive, and doctors did not bother to check. Here's what happened next. In 1997, doctors were writing 670,000 prescriptions for OxyContin. By 2002, that number shot up to 6.2 million prescriptions every year. 6.2 million, nearly 10 times more. Purdue was making money hand over fist. Just one drug, OxyContin, generated more than $30 billion in revenue for this company. Purdue weren't the only ones pushing opioids. Companies like Johnson & Johnson and Teva Pharmaceutical Industries were making opioid drugs too. The crisis reached its peak in 2012. Doctors in the US wrote 255 million prescriptions for opioid pain relievers in 1 year. Thousands of people got addicted. From 1999 to 2016, more than 450,000 Americans died from opioid overuse. And the crisis is far from over. Nearly 71,000 drug overdose deaths in 2019 involved an opioid. Purdue Pharma, the company that fueled this epidemic, got away with a slap on the wrist. When it faced thousands of lawsuits, the company declared bankruptcy. Its owners, the Slacker family, had to pay just a fine. No jail time for fueling an epidemic. Instead, they were given immunity. The Slackers piggybacked off the bankruptcy. Before declaring bankruptcy, in fact, they shifted close to $11 billion in cash out of Purdue.
Now, for those who have been down with me for a while, do y'all remember when I did the show on Teva? So what they're telling you is when one business folded under the same umbrella, they just shifted the funds and called and bankrupted. So it's always been the same business. All of these businesses from activists, she said Activa, but activists, so for lean, perks, that's how we went through. We walked through that whole thing. We walked through lean, walked through perks and Xanax. We walked through all of them. So all of those, and Oxycontin. We walked through all of them. We walked through all of them. And all of them feed into Teva. So all they do is play business chess with all of their little different pharmaceuticals, and then they'll patent it. And then here's the cold part about what they do. They make generic brands off of their designer brands. So they'll literally make a designer brand, make the generic version or package of generic version, and then sell that to the hospitals or whatnot. And then the higher insurance is getting the premium, what they're calling premium. And, you very well could just be getting the same medication. It's just packaged different. Again, I'm not talking about medical situations. I'm talking about finance and business. And, the part of the news and politics is that Teva is the feeder company of all of the companies that were just having all of these different legal issues. Now, if you also want to know about the other investors, well, that's why I was showing you those other pictures. If you want to know who's invested in these companies that they're talking about. And there's another little country that America sends a lot of money to, that some of these people have the same religion of. And, they send a lot of money over there to make sure that they take care of them people very well, and help and aid them in whatever endeavor they choose to inflict on anyone else. And, not to mention, they also have a force that trains our police to be militarized and basically how to kill. I told you before where Teva is based. So, welfare recipients. The biggest, Onika. the biggest welfare recipient. Now, if we said that, like if Nick Cannon tried to say something like that, he'd be getting bashed up all side of his head. Like, you can't say that about these people. But the real truth of the matter is, there ain't much difference between these people and them, though. At the end of the day, only difference is one group has the power and the smart and the wits to use apparatuses like this, while the others rely on this. In any event, What's the difference? Outcome is the same, is it not? Now, if you look at that on a small scale, well, what are these people doing with billions of bucks on a big scale? I mean, really. I mean, really. But, this is why I want black folks to really start paying attention to what's going on out here. Because, they're trying to address, and well, no, they're not trying to. They're literally addressing one another right before people's faces. And a lot of people aren't understanding what's going on because there's a lot of these old Negroes who just have refused to notice this big ass elephant right in the room. That is white supremacy. Oh, no, they're going to call it everything else. And we're going to get to that today because I wanted to spend the majority of my time on that. I've spent enough time on the pharmaceutical end of things, but I do want you to understand how this also plays in. Because what are they trying to do now? See, this whole trying to change the filibuster thing, there's way more to that you should be worried about and then they're posing it as voters' rights. One of the things that you should know to be on alert about is when the Congressional Black Caucus is coming out holding press conferences. That really lets you know this ain't for black folk. You know what I'm saying? That really lets you know it ain't for black folks. Look at these people. Boy, they was up there, and they were down there in Atlanta. Oh, Joe, we with you, baby. Now, here's MLK in the White House handling real business. But there's these guys coming out here. We got to have the voting rights, and we got to have voting rights. Oh, my Lord, we got to have the voting rights. So, and by the way, this dude is looking to outseat this dude, which I hope, change comes. So let's check this brother out and hope that he can give us something to go for, Let me see here. Oh, and shout out to Black Alpha Network. He made that. And that's a very good shot of the press conference, I must say. Jeez. Oh, my goodness. So, yeah, Marcel, and he actually followed me on Twitter. So, yeah, from what I see, if y'all know him more than me, from what I see, I've seen that brother really represent. So, man, I'm with it. I, of course, can't vote for South Carolina, but, shoot, we need to get Clyburn out of there. And, I'm willing to aid that brother how I can. So if you need to come over here and holler at the folks, then, man, because we need to get these old Negroes up out of here, man. And Jim Clyburn is one of them who must go. And, he's doing stuff that he just don't even give a damn anymore. They over here just, these people are nuts, man. Nuts. Let's see, is this what I want? Yes. So what you're seeing here lately is a bunch of, well, what are we going to do? Democracy is leaving and all of this, blah, blah, blah. If you've noticed, you're actually hearing both sides talking about, failing democracy. So that should be cause for concern. You understand? Don't trust them. I don't trust white supremacy. So all I see from Democrats and Republicans are white supremacists on both sides. Ain't nobody offering nothing tangible to black folks. Ain't nobody talking about justice. I see white supremacists in blackface in the Congressional Black Caucus. So, I mean, that's where I'm at with it. If you're not talking about tangibles, then you're not talking to us at all. There is no us and we the Democrat and we this party. There ain't none of that over here. None of it. This is to be first, black first space. Everything else comes to us to do business. We've been out here long enough. What are we marching for? No, 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 no. We are us. Us, and us. Let me, Lawrence Lilly. Let me show you this real quick. This is from, I think, yesterday. Yeah, yesterday.
Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris were on their way to Atlanta for what turned out to be a quick but historic visit.
I've been having these quiet conversations with members of Congress for the last 2 months. I'm tired of being quiet.
The president sharing his frustrations over a lack of movement on national voting rights legislation. He painted a dire picture of the nation's future elections and called on the U.S. Senate to change its filibuster rules to help get the bills passed. Now, the two bills in question are the Freedom to Vote Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer setting a deadline of January 17th, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, for the Senate to vote on a rules change as Republicans block voting rights legislation. A vote could happen today as well. Many voting rights advocates in Georgia did not show up for the president's remarks yesterday, saying they needed to see more action from Mr. Biden.
But at this point, we don't need another speech. We don't need him to come to Georgia and use us as a prop. What we need is work.
I'm glad he said
During the
that.
president's speech, he criticized states like Georgia for creating restrictive voter laws.
Restrictive voter laws. That's what they're calling it, right? I think we need to play. I'm gonna play something from the actual floor. Because y'all need to hear what's actually. I mean, so nobody say, "Hey, he's over here lying on these people." No, I am not. So where is this at? Just it. Let me see. No. Still looking for it. While I'm looking for this, family, please hit that like button for me, please. Please. Oh, yeah, he always sounds like he's throwing a tantrum, don't he? It's like, dude, come on, man. Who's doing that? Which one is it? Yeah. No, I got this video. Where's this doggone video at? Good grief. Everything's hard. Okay, so the one video I didn't. Okay, so let me play this one then, because I got to get this other video for y'all. So let me play Marco Rubio. I'm talking about this because they're really pushing this whole voters rights thing, which is it's really outrageous. But just check it out. It's not really important. Black folks, us, the constituency, the actual constituency of the Congressional Black Caucus, do not give a damn about voter rights because we're already registered voters as citizens. This isn't, and what they're trying to put in here has nothing to do with us.
The President of the United States told us that a riot that happened here in the U.S. Capitol last year was the equivalent of the day in which Japan attacked us at Pearl Harbor and the U.S. was pulled into a world war that took the lives of over 3% of the world's population. And yesterday we were treated to the president telling us that election laws that are being passed by various states across the country are basically the same, the equivalent of the segregation that existed in this country in the 1950s and 60s and before. Now look, if your daily routine is to wake up in the morning and turn on MSNBC as you ride your Peloton, and then you go on Twitter as you're drinking your caramel macchiato, and then you're reading the New York Times as you're eating your avocado toast, I imagine all this makes perfect sense to you. After all, for these people, they believe this ridiculous narrative that every Republican is an insurrectionist, probably a racist, wants to overthrow the U.S. government, and wants to destroy democracy. The good news is that the overwhelming majority of Americans happen to live back here on planet Earth. And what they're worried about, to the extent they even paid attention to any of the stuff that's been said over the last 2 weeks, what they're really worried about is the fact that everything costs more. You go to the grocery store and the shelves are empty. They have a small business and they hire someone on Monday who just disappears on Thursday and never comes back. You've got every day thousands of people illegally entering the United States across an open border. And by the way, we have a surge of violent crime and lawlessness across the country. That's probably what they're worried about. In fact, I know it is, on a daily basis. But to the extent they paid attention to any of this, let me tell you something. First of all, I think almost everyone would tell you that what happened on January 6th here was a terrible thing. It should never have happened, and it should never happen again. But I don't care how many candlelight vigils and musical performances you have from the cast of Hamilton. You're not going to convince at least most normal and sane people that our government last year was almost overthrown by a guy wearing a Viking hat and Speedos. Okay? And I don't care, how many of these speeches the president gives in which he shouts out this hyperbole and all this melodrama. You're not going to convince people that having a state pass a law that says, for example, that you have to produce an identification is the same as segregation. Nevertheless, despite the fact that that's what most people in this country are worried about is inflation and all these other things, that's not what we're working on here. That's not what we'll spend this week on. That's not what the priority of this administration has been. That's not what the president is giving speeches about. They don't care. You may care about inflation back home. They care about the fact their crisis is that there's some laws in this country, for example, some states in this country that do not automatically force everyone to register to vote. They just automatically register everyone. That's the crisis. They don't care that store shelves are empty. In fact, they've denied that the store shelves are actually empty. For them, the real problem
That's crazy.
Is that states have laws, for example, that don't allow these roving gang of activists to bully people into turning over their ballot so they can show up at 6:59 p.m. on Election Day and just dump it on an elections official. And by the way, they don't seem overly concerned that there are Americans that will be fired or not allowed into a restaurant unless they can produce their papers, their vaccine card. The real problem is how dare you ask them to produce a voter ID, a photo ID in order to vote. That's their real problem. So how can this be? I mean, how can there be such an enormous disconnect between what real people in the real world care about and are talking about on a daily basis and what we're going to spend our time talking about here in these speeches that have been given over the last week? It isn't about the Capitol riot. Everyone agrees the Capitol riot was terrible and shouldn't have happened, I think. Most everyone does.
Yeah, right.
People that downplayed. Over 700 riots. Thousands of cases of looting that happened in America in the summer of 2020.
Yeah, because somehow running up into a Capitol looking to get government officials equates to looting businesses with insurance. Yeah. They always try to make that pivot. Oh, goodness. Enough of Marco white supremacist, suspected white supremacist Rubio. But this is the other, wait. This is the one I really wanted y'all to see. Where's that at? Oh, damn it. One I need y'all to see. One who cares. Welcome. and then we're going to get to these the actual press conferences, because I'm going to show you a little bit of Joe Biden's, and then I'm going to show you the do nothing caucus.
Senator from Oklahoma.
Madam President, we're in the same spot in the Senate we've been at 5 times before.
Now, peep this out, because, I mean,
my Senate colleagues,
I can't be mad in front of what he's saying, because he actually has
to federalize our
this
elections.
is the Senate floor, so this ain't no game. So it is what it is.
This time, their demands have changed. It's not just vote for my bill or take a vote. It is, if you don't do this, we will blow up the Senate permanently. Oh, that's a different thing. So let me set some context on this, because this requires some conversation about where we are, what this conversation is all about, and what this really means for the future. So first, let me begin with the bill itself. There's no question 100 senators here have all been through an election process. We're all experts on elections. We've walked through it in a way that most Americans have never walked through before. We're passionate about fair elections. We're passionate about the people who actually vote, because those are the people that are actually engaged in our society. As we have millions of people that check out, don't care, don't vote, we encourage people to vote, to pay attention. The laws in our states are a little bit different on voting, because each state is a little bit different. That's not something new. That's actually written into the United States Constitution. It's been that way since 1789. They've always been a little bit different. In 1965, our nation took a strong, bold step to be able to make sure that we protected the rights of every single individual to be able to vote, because there was a season in American history where Black Americans were being pushed out. There were poll taxes, there were Jim Crow laws, there were things that actually pushed people away from voting. So in 1965, our nation passed the Voting Rights Act. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. That Voting Rights Act still stands today to be able to protect the right of every individual in America to vote. If a single person or a group of people are suppressed in their voting or prohibited from voting, federal courts today have the right to be able to step in on any jurisdiction, any state in America, to be able to protect the rights of individuals to be able to vote. I bring that to this body as a reminder because for some reason, an enormous portion of this body on the left side of this room are running around the nation and saying, if we don't do something right now, there'll be voter suppression in America, and we have to change that. When they all know in 1965, we passed the Voting Rights Act, and that act still stands today to be able to protect the rights of individuals. I hear people wander around the nation and get on news channels and say the Voting Rights Act has been kicked out by the Supreme Court when they know that is a lie. They know it is. One section of the Voting Rights Act the Supreme Court took out several years ago, it was the section that required what's called pre-clearance. It created a formula for states that had done a lot of oppression against Black Americans. It created a certain formula for them. If they made any changes in their voting laws, they had to get pre-clearance for that. It stayed in place for decades, even though their state had cleaned up their voting laws and had changed for decades, it stayed there.
Well, I mean, come on, let's keep it real, because it has to. Now, again, this is a big to-do about much of nothing when it comes down to anything we're asking for. This serves as a distraction. However, it is an issue for foundational Black Americans, and I'll tell you why. Because this law that they're trying to get pushed in here is mainly about immigrants. what they want to do is make sure that anyone can show up on the day they want to vote, register there, and vote. That's what they want to do. That's what they're talking about with the suppression. Because as far as here, we have voter by mail, early registration, early voting. You can do all that. You can send your ballot in early. All of that, you can do all of that here. So none of that has to do. Also, in most states, most inmates, when they are released, are eligible to vote. Now, I guess they want to make that legal, but they're putting a lot of emphasis on sex offenders. Now, I'm not sure if that's something specific in the law, because you know how they like to overword and overplay things. So, but I'm going to let them keep talking, because I just want you to hear this is what they're talking about. And truth be told, family, the importance of this is make sure we don't give them black folks nothing. Because with this, and see, and I'm going to get to the culprits in our own house that we also have to deal with. So let's get,
Until the
let's
Supreme
go,
Court
let's go
looked at
on.
it and said, you can't hold this over these states a generation later for something that a previous generation did. And so the Supreme Court kicked that one section out, but kept everything else, including protecting the rights of every single American from voter suppression. Every law in every state in America could be challenged in a federal district court, circuit court, into the Supreme Court to make sure the rights of individuals are protected. Now, people here may not know that that still exists based on the way that the news has talked about voting of late and based on all the conversation about voting. But that is the law of the land right now. So what's being brought to this body to vote on then? Well, here's what's been brought to this body to be able to vote on. A long list of things that they want to be able to address and to be able to say they want to change voting in America to be able to remake it in their image. Except it's not in the image of their states, because many of my Democrat colleagues don't actually have in their own state the things that they're actually putting into this federal legislation, meaning literally they're taking over from officials in their own state, telling their own governor, their own legislature that they're wrong and that they're going to set them straight. We have a disagreement on some of these issues. I'll grant that. Some of the areas in their bill we look at and go, let's talk about. Most of the areas in their bill we look at and go, are you kidding me? We just disagree on this. Things like same-day voter registration, where a person could literally walk in, say, I've never registered to vote before, tell them their name, and then vote on the spot.
That part right there. I mean, good grief. So what they're basically trying to do is establish a whole nother group in place of who, you say? Well, in place of us asking for something. But using black folks to do it. Well, that is enough of him. I just wanted you to hear that part because it's mightily important. So before I get into the second half of these videos, I'm gonna play the elder first, and then I'm gonna play two of our elders, and then we gonna get to old Jim Crow Joe. Yeah, let's hear our elders first.
So I will continue to condemn riots and continue to say to my brothers and sisters that this is not the way. Continue to affirm that there is another way. But at the same time, it is as necessary for me to be as vigorous in condemning the conditions which cause persons to feel that they must engage in riotous activities as it is for me to condemn riots. I think America must see that riots do not develop out of thin air. Certain conditions continue to exist in our society, which must be condemned as vigorously as we condemn riots. But in the final analysis, a riot is the language of the unheard. What is it that America has failed to hear? It has failed to hear that the plight of the Negro poor has worsened over the last few years. It has failed to hear that the promises of freedom and justice have not been met. And it has failed to hear that large segments of white society are more concerned about tranquility and the status quo than about justice, equality, and humanity. And so in a real sense, our nation's summers of riots are caused by our nation's winters of delay. And as long as America postpones justice, we stand in the position of having these recurrences of violence and riots over and over again. Social justice and progress are the absolute guarantors of riot prevention.
In this crooked game of power politics here in America, the Negro, namely the race problem, integration, civil rights issue, are all nothing but tools used by the whites who call themselves liberals against another group of whites who call themselves conservatives, either to get into power or to retain power. Among whites here in America, the political teams are no longer divided into Democrats and Republicans. The whites who are now struggling for control of the American political throne are divided into liberal and conservative camps. The white liberals from both parties cross party lines to work together toward the same goal. And white conservatives from both parties do likewise. The white liberal differs from the white conservative only in one way. The liberal is more deceitful, more hypocritical than the conservative. Both want power, but the white liberal is the one who has perfected the art of posing as the Negro's friend and benefactor. And by winning the friendship and support of the Negro, the white liberal is able to use the Negro as a pawn or a weapon in this political football game that is constantly raging between the white liberals and the white conservatives. The American Negro is nothing but a political football, and the white liberals control this ball through tricks or tokenism, false promises of integration and civil rights. In this game of deceiving and using the American Negro, the white liberals have complete cooperation of the Negro civil rights leader, who sell our people out for a few crumbs of token recognition, token gains, token progress. In the New York Tribune, in an editorial dated February the 5th, 1960, they pointed out that out of 11 million qualified Negro voters, only 2,700,000 actually take time to vote. This means that, roughly speaking, only 3 million out of the 11 million Negroes who are qualified to vote take an active part. And the remaining 8 million remain voluntarily inactive. And yet it is this small minority, the 3 million Negro voters, who help determine who will be the next president. If who will be the next president can be influenced by 3 million Negro voters, it is easy to see why the presidential candidates of both political parties put on such a false show with the Civil Rights Bill and promises of integration. They must impress the 3 million voting Negroes who are the actual integration seekers. And if so much fuss is made over these 3 million integration seekers, What would the presidential candidates have to do to appease the 8 million non-voting Negroes if they ever decided to become politically active? They hold the balance of power. Who are the 8 million non-voting Negroes? What do they want? And why don't they vote? The 3 million Negro voters are the so-called middle-class Negroes, or high-class Negroes, or uppity Negroes, who are referred to by the late Howard University sociology professor E. Franklin Frazier as the black bourgeoisie, who have been educated to think as patriotic individualists with no racial pride whatsoever, who believe in and look forward to the future integrated, intermarried society that is constantly being promised to them by the Negro politician. And therefore, this integration-minded 3 million minority remain an active part of the white-controlled political parties. But it must never be overlooked that these 3 million Negro integration seekers are only a small minority of the 11 million qualified Negro voters. The 8 million non-voting Negroes are the majority, the downtrodden black masses. They have refused to vote. They've refused to take a part in politics because they reject the Uncle Tom approach of the clergy politician leadership that has been handpicked for the so-called Negroes by the white man himself. This clergy politician leadership does not speak for the Negro majority. They don't speak for the black masses. They speak for the black bourgeoisie, the brainwashed, white-minded, middle-class minority, who, because they are ashamed of their race, because they are ashamed of being black and don't want to be identified with black, they are seeking to lose this black identity by mixing and mingling and intermarrying and integrating with the white society. The race problem cannot be solved by listening to the white-minded, brainwashed minority. The white man must try to learn what the black majority wants. The president would be wise to try and learn what the black masses want. And the only way to find this out is by listening to the man who speaks for the black masses. And I can declare to you tonight and to the entire world that the man here in America who speaks for the majority, the downtrodden, dissatisfied black masses, is this same man who so many thousands of our people are flocking toward to see and hear. This same Mr. Muhammad who is labeled by you as a black supremacist and as a racist and as an extremist. If the 3 million middle-class Negroes are casting their ballots for integration and intermarriage, what do the non-voting black masses who are in the majority want? Find out what the black masses want, and then perhaps America's grave race problem can be solved.
Well, how about that? How about that? Yes, indeed. He said a spam key in the chat. You know, yeah, I saw those comments. You know, I wouldn't look at anybody who's done that much, made that much of an impact. And again, see, a lot of us have came up, and a lot of other people perceive that we have this savior need. So one person will be everything. No, it's not how it works. We need to get, and see that doing that is really kind of a, unfortunately, it's a cowardly mind state, because when you do that, it alleviates personal responsibility to build your own community. You want some savior to just show up and it just magically appears without you having to ever put your hands to nothing. So you can have one hand on Zeddy, one hand on our thing. So whichever one takes off, you could just roll with that. No, it's going to take commitment. Now, with that being said, yeah, there's going to be people who feel what type of way about any of our leaders. However, here we move on a higher level of intellect, so we understand what a person is saying. A broken clock is right 2 times a day. So just because it's broke, that time of day will still be right, regardless of where it's being shown at. That is the mind state to which this platform operates. So like I said, we are dealing with a higher level of understanding. Tanya Zion, welcome. Dan Ruck, welcome. So, you know, we're patient, patiently learning. This is not a sprint, it's a marathon. So trust me, if I'm playing something, I'm getting to a point. And with that being said, let's get to my next point.
Americans, it is my honor to introduce a leader who is unwavering in his commitment to defend our democracy and ensure the ballot prevails. The President of the United States of America, Joe Biden.
Now, it's funny because they talk about the riots. They always quick to refer to the riots of over the George Floyd, of course, not the insurrection. And this is my point. All this that you're hearing from the right, that's cool. But this is a Democratic president. Why hasn't he vowed to go after the insurrectionists? They're just getting slaps on the wrist. However, for the people who actually did get prosecuted, especially here in Portland, all of them are doing years. Y'all have to excuse me. I'm hoarse. So, you know, a little bit hoarse. So I'm popping cough drops to make sure my voice is right. I don't be cutting it out. You did. But this move here, so for my past few broadcasts, I've been showing y'all how they're sending these dog whistles to each other. And when they're sending these dog whistles to each other, hey, we got to get together. And what about unity? You're seeing headlines. Are we on the brink of another civil war? Civil war directly had to do with possession of us. So, to smoke screen, just look at the optics. So the smoke screen, his agenda and his message, because he already knows these plantation children behind him are so oblivious to what he's actually going to say, because they're just happy to be there. Yeah, we love you, Joe. Yay, Joe, we love you. We're going to win. I don't know what, but we're going to win. I'm so proud. Lord. So, just look at the optics, family.
In our lives, in the lives of our nation, life of our nation, there are moments so stark that they divide all that came before and everything that followed.
Okay, so first off, let's address that he shows up like the guest pastor during the revival. This dude walked in like the bishop during convocation. Oh, Lord.
They stop time. They rip away the trivial from the essential. And they force us to confront hard truths about ourselves, about our institutions, and about our democracy.
So we're gonna hear about police, or we're gonna hear about some charges on some insurrectionists. I wonder what he talking about. Maybe he talking about he must be talking about them people that are refused to get that stuff.
In the words of Scripture, to remind us to hate evil, love good, and establish justice in the gate.
I swear, man, these people this is what they think of y'all black folk. Y'all thought I was playing. This is Sunday service, man. So within the first 60 seconds of having you take your seat, he's done dropped a Bible verse on you.
Last week, President Harris and I stood in the United States Capitol to observe one of those before and after moments in American history. January 6th insurrection on the citadel of our democracy.
The citadel. The citadel. Who wrote that in his speech? Come on, man. Yeah. Now he's catering to the tenor section in James Hall's choir. Oh, Lord.
Today, we come to Atlanta, the cradle of civil rights, to make clear what must come after that dreadful day when a dagger was literally held at the throat.
Oh, yeah, President Harris. He'll slip back and forth, so he's going to do that a few times. President Harris. I think they want her out of there before that happens. Before that mistake or faux pas becomes a reality, Joe.
Throat of American democracy. Lord. We stand on the grounds to connect Clark, Atlanta University, Morehouse College, near Spelman College, the home of generations of advocates, activists, educators, and preachers. Young people, just like the students here, who have done so much to build a better America. We visited the sacred Ebenezer Baptist Church and paused to pray.
The Ebenezer what, Joe? Oh boy. That Ebenezer what? Let's hear that again. Oh, man.
College, near Spelman College, the home of generations of advocates, activists, educators, and preachers. Young people, just like the students here, who have done so much to build a better America. We visited the sacred Ebenezer Baptist Church and paused to pray at the crypt of Dr. and Mrs. King and spent time with their family. And here in the district, as was pointed out, represented and reflected the life of beloved friend John Lewis. In their lifetimes, time stopped when a bomb blew up the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham.
Dude, why don't you just start rapping? I mean, my God. Just start rapping or something. I mean, or sing. You know, you might as well start to cue the music. A dream, the impossible. Come on, dude. He is dropping every black friend and associate's name in the book. So we were at Dr. Martin Luther King's family's house, and then we went to the crypt of Dr. Mr. King. Oh, golly, dude. Okay, so what is the point of this?
And murdered 4 little girls. They stopped when John and many others seeking justice were beaten and bloodied while crossing the bridge at Selma.
And then John Lewis promptly thanked the police officer for whipping his ass. Thank you for your service. You done beat me bloody on this bridge in Selma.
Named after the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan. They stopped.
Now he's testing just to see how stupid everybody else is there. Because he know good and damn well he came right up under one. The Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan. Oh, like Strom Thurmond there, Joe? Oh, my God. This is painful.
Time stopped. They forced the country to confront the hard truths and to act. To keep the promise of America alive. The promise that holds that we're all created equal, but more importantly, deserve to be treated equally. And from those moments...
All right, then, Joe. Well, you know, seeing that you're president, maybe you can make something happen? Or promise these people something? Or I mean, right now, how many minutes are we in there? Thank you. So, for 3 minutes, he has rambled on about famous Boule Negroes. Well, John Lewis ain't really famous. John Lewis is like Little Nas X of the civil rights movement because nobody knew who the hell no John Lewis was. And like for those of us who've been taught this as children, no, John Lewis was never relevant. I mean, like, no. He started gaining relevance somewhere in the 90s. Like, nobody paid attention to John Lewis. No, nobody ever mentioned John Lewis other than he was there. That's that guy in the picture. And when I saw John Lewis, he was always making reference to bigger people in the movement. Like John Lewis, like he's some kind of hero. What are you kidding? And that's why they love him. I got beat in my head and I told him thank you.
Moments of darkness and despair came light and hope. Democrats, Republicans, and Independents worked to pass the historic Civil Rights Act and the voting rights legislation. And each successive generation continued that ongoing work. But then, the violent mob of January 6, 2021, empowered and encouraged by a defeated former president, sought to win through violence what he had lost at the ballot box.
So we're going to hear a give them hell, and we're going to be tough on this crime, and we're going to not stand for this type of behavior. We're going to hear that right now, right? Watch. Oh, it's coming, right?
The will of the mob to overturn a free and fair election. And for the first time in American history, to stop the peaceful transfer of power. They failed. But democracy's victory was not certain, nor is democracy's future. That's why we're here today, to stand against the forces in America that value power over principle, forces that attempted a coup
A coup against the legally expressed will of the American people by sowing doubt.
Okay. How, Joe? How is that going to happen here, Joe? Are you saying you're going to do something to punish those people?
Inventing charges of fraud and seeking to steal the 2020 election from the people. They want chaos to reign. We want the people to rule. Let me be clear. This is not about me or Vice President Harris or our party. It's about all of us. It's about the people. It's about America. Hear me plainly. The battle for the soul of America is not over. We must stand strong and stand together to make sure January 6th marks not the end of democracy, but the beginning of a renaissance of our democracy. You know, for the right to vote and to have that vote counted is democracy's threshold liberty. Without it, nothing is possible. But with it, anything is possible. But while the denial of fair and free elections is undemocratic, it is not unprecedented. Black Americans were denied full citizenship voting rights until 1965. Women were denied the right to vote until just 100 years ago. The United States Supreme Court in recent years has weakened the Voting Rights Act. And now, the defeated former president and his supporters used the big lie about the 2020 election to fuel torrent and torment and anti-voting laws.
Anti-voting laws? Wait a minute. Wait. Did y'all see what he just did? Did y'all see what he just did? He just made the insurrection about something having to do with voting laws. You turned a violent insurrection, a treasonous insurrection, into a, you boil it down to a conversation of voting laws? CH464. I just wonder who wrote this, because this is so flim-flam. Yeah, struggle speech. He don't know what he's saying. I mean, this is all over the place. Now, okay, I'm going to play a little more because I just want you to ingest the ramble, and then I'm going to play you the Congressional Black Caucus, family. Ooh.
New laws designed to suppress your vote, to subvert our elections. Here in Georgia.
Why does he sound like the old drunk, like a old drunk sea captain or something?
You've done the hard work of democracy, registering voters, educating voters, getting voters to the polls. You've built a broad coalition of voters, black, white, Latino, Asian American, urban, suburban, rural, working class and middle class, and it's worked. You've changed the state by bringing more people legally to the polls. That's how you won the historic elections for Senator Raphael Warnock and Senator John Ossoff. You did it the right way, the democratic way. And what's been the reaction of Republicans in Georgia?
That's right.
Choose the wrong way, the undemocratic way. To them, too many people voting in a democracy is a problem. So they're putting up obstacles. For example, voting by mail is a safe and convenient way to get more people to vote. So they're making it harder for you to vote by mail.
No, sir. They absolutely are not. Me being living in one of the states, it's the first state, or one of the first, for voting by mail. Absolutely not, man. I think the whole West Coast votes by mail, And we have the option to vote by mail, meaning we could turn our ballots in by a certain date. If we miss that mail-in date, then on top of that, we could turn around and drop it off in the drop box on election day. Miss me.
The same way, I might add, in the 2020 election, President Trump voted from behind the desk in the White House in Florida, dropping your ballots off to secure drop boxes. It's safe, it's convenient, and you get more people to vote. So they're limiting the number of drop boxes and the hours you can use them. Taking away the options has a predictable effect. Longer lines at the polls. Lines that can last for hours. You've seen it with your own eyes.
Come on.
People get tired. They get hungry. When the Bible teaches us to feed the hungry and give water to the thirsty, the new Georgia law actually makes it illegal. Think of this. I mean, it's 2020. And now 22 going into that election. It makes it illegal.
So you can care about black folk when it's time to vote. Well, then I guess police just need to start running up on black folks in the election lines then. Then maybe we get a law for protection for black folks then. Get them pink hoodie attacks. I mean, hey, the Pink Hoodie Attack Club, it worked for the Asians. They got a whole crime bill. Pulling that farce. Okay, so we're going to coordinate in two major cities, San Francisco and New York. And then we're going to make it seem like the whole world is jumping on Asians. And then you get the media to get behind it. They start pushing it. Man, I'm telling you right now, everybody who is sitting behind this dude, this is, they selling it like a church service. That's how you know it's bullshit. But I mean, on top of that, just the whole optics of it. He's using these blackface as a backdrop. Like, see, we're on board with everything he talking about, black folk. This is what's supposed to be important. See, we young and we black. We at the college. We college age. Clearly, voting rights is what's important to us. Right? Then they so quick to invoke, well, Martin Luther King would want it this way, and he would say, I have a dream. This devil keeps dropping the Bible. Feed the hungry and clothe the poor. Shut up. Legal
To bring your neighbors, your fellow voters, food or water while they wait in line to vote. What in the heck are we talking about? I mean, think about it.
Look at us.
That's not America.
Praise the Lord, yes.
That's what it looks like when they suppress the right to vote. And here's how they plan to subvert the election.
Jesus.
The Georgia Republican Party, the state legislature,
This don't make no sense.
has now given itself the power to make it easier for partisan actors.
Oh, that's right. Start warming up. Blam, 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 blam. I mean, this almost sounds like he about to start tuning up. And Donald Trump is a bad man. Don't you know? If you don't know, you need to vote for me. Then you ain't black. Oh, good.
They're cronies to remove local election officials. Think about that. What happened the last election? The former president and allies pursued, threatened, and intimidated state and local election officials. Election workers, ordinary citizens were subject to death threats, menacing phone calls, people stalking them in their homes. Remember what the defeated former president said to the highest ranking election official, a Republican in this state? He said, quote, I just want to find 11,780 votes.
Oh God. Okay, so this is enough of this. I just want you to see, like, family, the black people that are following that, we can't trust them folk. I mean, their judgment stinks. Oh, Al Sharpton. Oh, he was out there proud too, Shawana too. Yeah, that's the picture I showed. Where that at? Where's that picture? They was out there. I mean, we're out here with we representing Atlanta. Yeah, there you go. Look at him. The preacher crew. Yeah, we're gonna go out here, we gonna celebrate, we gonna represent for the Black Caucus. Now, you understand? And then you got these shout out to Black Alpha Network again for that. Because that is hilarious. I mean, because that is essentially how that looks, you know. And just to give you contrast from like seeing stuff like this, I was raised with stuff like this, you know. That's like my grandfather and my great uncles and my great granddaddy. Another one of my great uncles and my great granddaddy. And even going further back, that's my great granddaddy and his family. Traditional Black Americans, no question. Man, who knows where y'all from? Shit, the country. Taking you through some nostalgia. So, those are the type of black folks I come from. Unfortunately, some of the ones that they want to speak, well, no, all of the ones that they choose to speak will be nothing like what I was raised by at all. And I'm sure many of you in the same way, you know, man. And let me point out something to you about my just on the real side of the game. My grandfather, my mama's daddy, he's like the one sitting in the front. If you look in my great granddaddy hand, he got a pistol in his hand. Letting you know, like, yeah, it ain't gonna happen here, homie. I don't give a damn who you is. So this is like, yeah. Yeah. I'm not new. I'm a third, fourth, fifth generation. You know, we may be a little light, some of us anyway. You know, but yeah, don't let the light skin and pretty hair fool you. Anyway, the black and white, yeah, you know, gotta let them know. That's also another thing too. Let them, all them shades just be clear too. Oh, you got you masked it. No. Boy, y'all better give y'all melanin more credit than that. Y'all know all the different stuff y'all can create? Nobody compare to y'all.
It makes me emotional. When I as a black woman, I must stand here today before you, asking us to do something that the past 5 presidents have done and 4 white Republican presidents reauthorize the Voting Rights Act. So the real question you should ask yourself is what happened? What happened with this last president that got us to where we are today? That my colleagues will not stand up and pass the Voting Rights Act. Is it because we won? Is it because we vote? That is what you should ask yourself. Let me end by saying that the president made it very clear. Where do you stand? Do you stand with Dr. Martin Luther King or George Wallace? Do you stand with John Lewis or Bill Clinton? Do you stand
Oh,
with Abraham
God.
Lincoln or Jefferson Davis? We stand with civil rights leaders, advocates, legislators, lawyers. We stand here fighting. And so today, I'm going to bring several members.
Mammy Babble, for real.
We're going to do something a little different. We're going to do the floor house 1 minute.
Good
With the
man.
exception of our leader and majority whip, Clyburn. And then I'm going to ask my members to join me. Birthday lady, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee.
Okay, so if you didn't know what she's talking about, this is something that, man, oh man, they really going with a theme here. So first, the whole thing is like church. Now, what they're finna do here is hold a press conference. Like, for those of us who grew up in church, y'all remember Watch Night Service? Like, anybody remember the Watch Night Service as a kid? If y'all grew up in church, y'all remember Watch Night Service. So on New Year's Eve, we got Watch Night Service, right? So everybody at the church, and that's when all the preachers is there. So they do like these like 3-minute sermonettes or whatever, and then they be going in tandem. So all the preachers, they're gonna preach all the way until about 10:45. They're gonna pray into the new year. And so you're doing all of this, right? And so what she just mentioned is this is how they're going to do this press conference. Y'all think this is New Year's Eve? This is Watch Night Service. Like I said, so Joe Biden come out like Bishop at Convocation, and these folks up here like the dueling preachers on New Year's Eve. Oh, my Lord.
Will join me at the podium. Former chair of the CBC, and good to have our good friend that will join us to help address questions. With that,
Goodness.
Congressman James Clyburn.
Lord. Oh, boy.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I want to surprise you with this. I don't think there is any issue more emotional with members of the Congressional Black Caucus and our constituents.
Yeah, stop right there. Stop. Speak for yourself, old Negro.
Than the issue of voting.
Definitely not. No, reparations and justice. Those are two main things on the topic of discussion for your constituents, being black and all.
I don't believe there's any group of people other than the Congressional Black Caucus and our constituents that are.
Well, again, there you go with your constituents. Again, stop lying on black people, Joe. Or Jim Crow Jim. I mean, he just up here just straight up lying. Our constituents, no, that ain't right. That ain't true. And when you say your constituents, that's actually probably accurate. But here's the confusion. You're named the Black Congressional Black Caucus or Congressional Black Caucus, meaning everybody naturally assumes when you're doing something, you're going to do it to benefit black people. Well, we all know as black folks, that ain't true because right here, what they're talking about right now has nothing to do with what the hell has been going on out of black people's lips in the last 2 years.
Really practical.
I don't want nothing. Right, Judah Queen. Ain't that right out of his mouth.
And that is why when we sent before the People Act, H.R. 1, and the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act, H.R. 4, over to the Senate, and we saw significant reticence on the part of various senators. And Joe, Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia expressed support for the People Act, except that he had some misgivings about parts of it. So when he decided that he could put together legislation that he thought would be bipartisan, and he proposed what he called the Freedom to Vote Act, every member of this caucus lined up in support of it, demonstrating the practicality of the political process. So the Freedom to Vote Act is not our bill. We agreed to support Senator Joe Manchin's bill. So that's what this bill is. And we're finding some.
So he's happy to tell you, see, white folks, this ain't really our bill. It's Joe Manchin's bill. It's a white man's bill. You can definitely trust the white man. This is sad.
Real issues trying to figure out why is it
Doggone shame, man.
that when we decided to support his bill, he seems to be supporting a filibuster of his own bill. That to us is very disconcerting. Finally, I think that all of us in the Congress.
Well, you know, that kind of says that they really don't fool with you the long way, Jim.
Black caucus are very understanding of our history. The 13th Amendment freed the slaves. The 14th Amendment gave us rights of due process and equal access. But it was the 15th Amendment.
We ain't had no equal access.
To the Constitution to give the newly freed slaves the right to vote. That amendment was passed on a straight party line vote. Yes. So we take exception, grave exception, when anybody tells us that legislation cannot have credibility unless it is bipartisan. You're saying to us the 15th Amendment is without credibility. So we ask all of our friends, inside and outside the Congress, to be careful with that. That's not what history teaches us. And I'm pleased to yield to Chairman Jeffries.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Thank you, Madam Chair, for your leadership, to all the members of the Congressional Black Caucus. The right to vote is precious. The right to vote is sacred. The right to vote is central to the very integrity of our democracy. You can't have a government of the people, by the people, and for the people unless every single American has the unfettered ability to choose their representatives and fully participate in American democracy.
Okay. Oh, boy. Let me see. I'm going to fast forward to another one of these people because, I want to just kind of skim through a few of these because what they'll do, this, like I said, this is like pastor roulette. It's like pastor roulette.
Overcome. For all Americans, the world is watching us, and now is the time to stand up for our democracy.
Hi, I'm Congresswoman Terry Sewell, and I proudly represent Alabama's 7th Congressional District, which includes the historic civil rights cities of Birmingham, Selma, and Montgomery.
I would have never known that was in Alabama.
Selma 56 years ago, where John Lewis and the foot soldiers shed blood on a bridge for the equal right of all Americans to vote. But as we know, old battles have become new again, as state legislatures across this country erect deliberate barriers to the ballot box, trying to silence a certain group of people. These new laws may not require us to count how many jelly beans are in a jar, but modern day voter suppression is no less pernicious. Yesterday, I was honored to join President Biden and Vice President Harris and our Madam Leader of the Congressional Black Caucus, Joyce.
Now, you remember what I think it was Jason Black and others have also told you, when these folks start talking that all and we and again, the John Heinrich Clark actually is one of who I believe first mentioned that. That, yeah, the we, all Americans. Yeah. Same old line.
As the president spoke of an urgent need
Can't trust
to protect the sacred right to vote, I applaud the president for being unequivocal in his statement that by any means necessary, we must change the rules of the Senate and pass the John Robert Lewis Voting Rights Act. Our nation is at an inflection point. Voting right legislation will go to the Senate floor and it must pass. You know, we're on the anniversary, the cusp of the Martin Luther King celebration day, Monday. But there can be no celebration without liberation, without freedom, without the right to vote. As we prepare to observe the birthday of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, let us remember that justice delayed can be justice denied.
Oh, cliche city. Jeez. Oh my Lord. This affects us in no way. That's not actually true. Norma X and Alex, and you're a little late, but I've explained why before I started playing this. But I'll reiterate for those who are just now coming into the broadcast. The reason why this matters is because this is about smoke screening our agenda and promoting voter rights for illegals who just got here, who are getting established with the financial base by our government. But you got a bunch of these black folks who are just behind Joe Biden pushing this Voters' Rights Act. This is not a good thing for us. This Voter Rights Act absolutely needs to fail for foundational black Americans. It is not a benefit for us whatsoever. Don't kid yourself. You better start looking at the little fine print before you start hearing what them people say. Check it out for yourself and know what's in these bills. Because if something is in that bill that will affect you, then they're not going to tell you this in mainstream media. But what they will do, this is when you go on alert. You see how much talking they're all doing? Why do you think they got the Congressional Black Caucus up there in front of everybody doing all this damn talking? Nobody listening to them. So why are they doing this? Because they're trying to make a spectacle of a point. Look over here. Don't look at what them Negroes want over there. Actual tangibles. And we're moving into election season. So yes, you better believe it. This has everything to do with establishing another group's financial base over us. So yeah, this is something you do not want to pass.
The time to act is now. Nothing is more
biscuit crumbs falling out of her mouth
than the sacred right to vote. The time to talk is over. It's now time to act.
Well, reparations would take a large part of that because no other big group, the Asians don't worry about voting. They worried about being a group, and they got a whole hate crime bill and some change. So let's just do that. Oh, right. The Native Americans didn't vote, but y'all asses went over there and made sure they got some money. being the Congressional Black Caucus and all. We have no allies. No, not at all. Yes, indeed. Oh, man. Absolutely, Sebastian Shaw. You know, they are. But see, this is the whole point. How would you know what doesn't work? You have to see it fail. We're watching it fail. This will fail as everything else is currently. I understand. Absolutely, Onika. It'll absolutely fail. You know, it's just the point of, see, I think a lot of times when I post things, people think that I might make a plea or I might be trying to get white people's attention for something. I'm not. My objective is to educate my people about what they are facing and who they're facing. So when I'm putting the game in front of you, so you can analyze for yourself. Oh, okay, this person's full of it. This person's genuine. I could deal with this person on this level. You feel me? You know, because we, like I said, we've been taught. Like, I don't know where the sister went earlier in the chat, but we've been taught to have one person be everything. But that takes away from the community. You know, that's like having a car and wanting the engine to be the seats. It ain't gonna work. You got to have multiple pieces moving. Multiple pieces within that function standing still. It all takes everything for it to function. So, you know, we have a tendency, I don't like this person, or I don't like what I thought of this person, so I'm going to discount their good information. Yeah, I've never really been one to subscribe into that because I want to make sure sometimes me listening to somebody has actually turned into an opportunity. Till when the average person is like, let me get offended. I'm like, well, what are you actually saying? So I want to hear what your point is. Now, if your point is garbage, like, okay, I can cut your ass out now. But, you know, if you actually got something to say, then, you know, we have to be observant, Esma, and patient. See, we're typically taught to react. Be quick to react. We have to be slow to react. Slow to speak, quick to watch and hear and learn. That way, everything happens really, really, really quick. Or it'll happen slow when it's happening real time. It looked like she might have dipped out the chat, but I mean, you know, I understand how certain people feel. And again, in this space, a lot of people are kind of new. So, you know, I understand, like, people be wanting to bang on folks real quick. You know, hey, you ain't like this, and you ain't doing everything that should be perfect in my mind, so let me bang on you now. You know, like, everybody's still a work in progress. You know, I don't, like, there's not a lot of people who got 20-something years in. You know, so I don't expect much. I wouldn't expect that out of people. The one thing I would hope I would stop seeing. Well, no. Let me say it like this. Let me put it like this. In the black media space, especially in this YouTube space, I would like to see more actual addressing of our predicament, our empowerment, and our solutions versus seeing a bunch of videos about other black content creators. That's kind of just whack to me. It's either time wasting or either those are non-FBA people who just don't have anything better to do. But for us, like, we're fighting white supremacy. Why the hell are you worried about making multiple videos with another black person's name in your title? And I mean, you know, I guess Misery does love company. That's one thing that is true. So I get when people don't like a person, people can gravitate. Well, I didn't like that person. I just didn't feel this way. Yeah, okay. I've learned a long time ago, I don't take on people's beefs. So this person doesn't groove with this person for whatever reason. Okay. But at the end of the day, where is that involving me at? So now when a person is dealing with themselves with me or offending me, well then same rule applies. Now you have to deal with me. You can't go deal and fix nothing with me through someone else. Now that numero uno. So if I'm not part of something, I ain't going to be part. And if I am part, then you're going to have to come fix it with me. And see, these are just the simple manners of getting over bullshit and getting over yourself if you handle it really quickly and properly. That tools we could use, because truth be told, integrity will go a much longer way in development. But when people are taught how like being deceitful is better, then you'll always wrestle with that. Time gets lost. A lot of stuff can be added on that, and you just have disaster. Keep it real with yourself. Keep it real with everybody who you're dealing with. Then move forward. But these people, if you're going to be in this space talking about you're with Black empowerment, and I see more other Black folks' names in your titles than I will ever see you going at white supremacy, then I'm going to have to say you full of shit. You can talk all that jazz all you want to, but I mean, if you ain't really to call out what we really dealing with, sit your little ass on the sidelines, man, because this is the game of people who really want to call it out. We do here. It's in my title. I don't play no games. Zero. And I don't have a bunch of dudes' names. I've done a couple shows, only one on, which was the Polite. And I told y'all then, like, this ain't going to be a bashing Polite situation. I know a lot of people thought so. That's why YouTube let that algorithm go. One broadcast, 16,000 views. Look at how many views I get. I'm shadow banned like a mug. But when they thought I was going to sit up here and go tear down another Black man, they opened the floodgates. You got a peak game, man. You want to be part of the solution or part of the problem. Because here's one thing. In this space, I could feel some way about anyone. Guess what? If I don't sit up here on this camera and tell the world that I feel this way about this person, the world never knows. Rewind that for yourself. For you who needed to just hear that. Let's continue, shall we? I just had to give that little tidbit out there because I'm telling you, I'm seeing this way too much.
My name is Colin Allred, represent Texas's 32nd district. I'm proud to be here with my colleagues in the Congressional Black Caucus.
This dude looked like he mixed.
I can tell you, we knew when we go into court, there'd be some judges that we weren't going to get a good ruling from. We knew that the courts might not be on our side. But we always had the law. We had the Voting Rights Act. We don't have that protection right now. We know that it's not going to be the courts that are going to protect our rights right now. It's going to have to be us in the Congress. And so the Congressional Black Caucus is coming together today to say to the United States Senate, there is nothing more important. After our capital was attacked,
he looks Dominican. Mary, thank you. I'm like, is this still really?
Of laws have passed.
Man, what's going on here?
To try and make it harder for certain Americans to vote. In the state of Texas, where it was already the hardest state in the country to vote, they just went and made it harder.
Don't I have some Texans in my chat? My wife is from Texas. My brother's in Texas. Got plenty of family in Texas. I've never once heard a complaint about voting in Texas. What is he talking about? What is he talking about? Who is having a problem voting? In what part of Texas? I mean, granted, it's a big state. I mean, but from Central, Houston, Dallas, Jacksonville, to Texarkana. I wonder where he talking about. They just start lying.
Time to act. And believe us. Believe us when we tell you. I've spoken to voters who've been disenfranchised. I can see the light go out of their eyes, the belief in our democracy leave them. We have to restore our democracy. This is the time. We cannot let a Senate rule that is based and was used almost exclusively to prevent civil rights, prevent us from rising to this moment.
And this is something that they do, and I would advise y'all to go watch that whole thing. Something they do throughout this whole time is they keep referring to the rights of we're losing rights, and then they talk back to civil rights, always leaving out the part of civil rights wasn't actually the very least mentioned thing in the civil rights was voting. And they always push it. And then they get these other people because they're talking to a certain demographic that doesn't, for all intents and purposes, really know any better. Because it's not like they teach the civil rights accurately in school. You hear, oh, Martin Luther King, I had a dream. So you don't really hear anything. Then you'll hear a whole bunch about women's rights. But see, that's also starting the programming of, especially for young black girls, to start getting them on this gender thing. I'm a female. I got my white friends here, and we're all together being women. Let you and Zaddy and them go on a boat. Somehow ain't nobody gonna know what happened to you. Old Miss Becky best friend over here. Exactly. Zaddy kill you and throw you off the boat, and they're over there celebrating, sipping, drinking out the chalice over your blood sacrifice. Well, I guess you didn't learn the hard way. I mean, it ain't like the devil supposed to tell you he the devil when he showed up, is he? But if you knew what you were looking at when you first started looking at him and told yourself something different, then, well, then that is on you. Eesh. So, yeah, and you know, unfortunately, we've had to put our children in the the school system. It's unfortunate, you know, if you have to deal with the public school system, but you still have the opportunity to teach your children. Most of all, your children should already have common sense before they get to school. Period. You know, but I understand a lot of people came up in that church doctrine, so they didn't teach their kids shit until, till trouble came. And they're like, oh, wait a minute, you got this up here because we just said this. These are things that need to be taught, and then what it is. See, because if you can teach your children young, I taught mine. Okay, well, this is what the system is. This is how you can't do things like this. This is what it is. But they never were diminished from being prideful about who they are and being black. They don't have to be. You know, they in an environment to where they see what's what. But, I think a lot of people, they just got lost in that church doctrine, man. Sad to say. Sad to say. But there's something I want to play. Hopefully you're not buffering. If you're buffering, just go ahead and try to refresh. Because I'm looking on two different things. I'm not buffering, but I do notice my quality keeps going down. I'm saying I'm on 720. I'm sure Alpha Cloudy for that. It's pretty interesting. Oh, I was frozen? Oh, wow. I sure shouldn't be. Yeah, I'm looking here. I'm good here. So I'm not sure why it's doing that on your end. But check this out, family. I'm going to play this. I'm trying to find these markers here. I'll mark some time of some different parts that he had to say. So here we get.
When I said it's harder to see a target. In the South, in the nonviolent movement, we were aided always, on the whole, by the brutality of our opponent. It isn't the same way in the North. The other thing is that you don't have legal segregation in the North as you do in the South. So it is much more difficult to get people to see exactly what you're doing, but it isn't an impossible job. It's a hard, it's a tedious job at times to get people to be aroused from their apathetic slumbers, but I still feel that Negroes in the North can be motivated just as they were motivated in the South. And I think as time goes on with the growing economic deprivation in the Negro community, it will even be easier because people will come to see that not only is something wrong in general, but something is wrong in particular in their own economic and housing situations.
Now, what the hell about voting rights did you hear? Did you hear him say anything about voting? It's so important. It's especially important. Here we got to vote. Oh boy, we got to vote. We got to vote. We got to vote. You ain't hear him say nothing. Not one word about voting. You get to this other part here. Man ain't said a damn word about voting. And I am going to get to the part to where he do.
Commitment of large segments of white America on the whole question of racial equality. I think we have to see that vacillation has always existed, ambivalence has always existed, and this to me is the so-called white backlash. It's merely a new name for an old phenomenon. I see the white backlash as a continuation of the same ambivalence and vacillation of white America on the whole question of racial justice that has existed since the founding of our nation. I think the other thing that we must see at this time is that many of the people who supported us in Selma, in Birmingham, were really outraged about the extremist behavior toward Negroes. But they were not at that moment, and they are not now, committed to genuine equality for Negroes. It's much easier to integrate a lunch counter than it is to guarantee an annual income, for instance, to get rid of poverty for Negroes and all poor people. It's much easier to integrate a bus than it is to make genuine integration a reality and quality education a reality in our schools. It's much easier to integrate even a public park than it is to get rid of slums. And I think we are in a new era, a new phase of the struggle, where we have moved from a struggle for decency, which characterized our struggle for 10 or 12 years, to a struggle for genuine equality. And this is where we're getting the resistance, because there was never any intention to go this far. People were reacting to Bull Connor and to Jim Clark rather than acting in good faith for the realization of genuine equality.
Do you think white...
So, they had a Donald Trump at the time to get them to move. They had a few of them. They had a few Donald Trumps to get them to move and react. You did. But truth be told, same as then, same as now. When we start talking about actual tangibles, you watch how people's energy shifts. Oh, wait a minute now. Hold on now. Yeah, resistance for wanting genuine equality. What does that say? So all of these people are like invoking his name while trying to make sure we don't get genuine equality ain't nothing but hucksters. So let me get to this last little marker here because this was kind of key. Is that it? I was at the very end. Okay.
Police brutality. That was on page 30 of the paper, but on page 1 ahead, and some of the old optimism was a little superficial, and now it must be tempered with a solid realism. And I think the realistic fact is that we still have a long, long way to go, and that we are involved in a war on Asian soil, which, if not checked and stopped, can poison the very soul of our nation.
Dr. King, even if there had not been a war in Asia, would you still not have had this nightmare insofar as the Negro movement for equality then touched on two things that the white community holds sacred, their children and their property?
Oh, I have no doubt that we would have encountered great difficulties, great problems of resistance if the war had not been in existence. So that I'm not going to say that all of our problems will be solved if the war in Vietnam is ended. But I do say that the war makes it infinitely more difficult to deal with these problems. When a nation becomes obsessed with the guns of war, it loses its social perspective, and programs of social uplift suffer. This is just a fact of history, so that we do face many more difficulties as a result of the war. It's much more difficult to really arouse a conscience during a time of war. I noticed the other day, some weeks ago, a Negro was shot down in Chicago, and it was a clear case of police brutality. That was on page 30 of the paper, but on page 1 at the top was 780 Viet Cong killed. That is something about a war like this that makes people insensitive. It dulls the conscience. It strengthens the forces of reaction, and it brings into being bitterness and hatred and violence. And it strengthened the military-industrial complex of our country, and it's made our job much more difficult, because I think we can go along with some programs, if we didn't have this war on our hands, that would cause people to adjust to new developments, just as they did in the South. They said they'd never ride the bus with us, blood would flow in the streets, they wouldn't go to school, and all of these things. But when people came to see that they had to do it because the law insisted, they finally adjusted. And I think white people all over this country will adjust once the nation makes it clear that in schools, in housing, we've got to learn to live together as brothers. I think the biggest problem now is that we got our gains over the last 12 years at bargain rate, so to speak. It didn't cost the nation anything. In fact, it helped the economic side of the nation to integrate lunch counters and public accommodations. It didn't cost the nation anything to get the right to vote established. And now...
Ooh. Uh-oh. Did y'all catch that? He said it didn't cost him anything to get the right to vote established. You got these Negroes up here crying today. People died for this. No, they didn't. No. They died for the same thing we asking for right now. Tangibles. They did not die wanting to be up under Zaddy. Black Mama, I hope you feel well soon. Sending healing vibes your way, my sister. Oh, Lord. Let me play this other part, man. Yeah, everything's like 16.
Just the fact that Negroes are black?
That's a part of it, and that grows out of something else. You can't thingify anything without depersonalizing that something. If you use something as a means to an end, at that moment you make it a thing and you depersonalize it. The fact is that the Negro was a slave in this country for 244 years. That was a willful thing that was done. The Negro was brought here in chains, treated in very inhuman fashion. And this led to the thingification of the Negro. So he was not looked upon as a person. He was not looked upon as a human being with the same status and worth as other human beings. And the other thing is that human beings cannot continue to do wrong without eventually rationalizing that wrong. So slavery was justified morally, biologically, theoretically, scientifically, everything else. And it seems to me that white America must see that no other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil. That is one thing that other immigrant groups haven't had to face.
Y'all hearing what he's putting down? Now, see, you'll have all of these groups come out here and lie on this man. They will blatantly lie on this man. And he's putting it down straight out. Like, no, this is what the case is from his lips.
The other thing is that the color became a stigma. American society made the Negro's color a stigma. And that can never be overlooked. So I think these things are absolutely necessary. The other thing is that America freed the slaves in 1863 through the Emancipation Proclamation of Abraham Lincoln, but gave the slaves no land or nothing in reality, and as a matter of fact, to get started on. At the same time, America was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that there was a willingness to give the white peasants from Europe an economic base.
Does this sound familiar as right now? Afghanistan. Does this sound familiar? I mean, we are literally watching that whole thing play out again. And that's, you know, that's what I said. And see, you have all of them do nothing Negroes over there talking all of that madness. And you got that big old elephant right in the room and going to sit up here and lie on this man's legacy. Well, we got to get it done before the Martin Luther King. Well, then what you should be getting done is exactly why they put a bullet in the man's head. And it wasn't about no damn integration. He already told you that because he already had integration by that. What was it that they killed him over? What he had not achieved yet. They wanted to prevent him from achieving something. Well, the integration happened. Voting rights did. What was that? The same thing that these cowardly Negroes is refusing to address right now. Got up there, so glad that we got the bill for the Indians. I'm so glad. And then the dude that I just was playing for you, he finna get up there and talk about some black and brown. This is a congressional black caucus. Our name don't come up out of nobody else's mouth. Why does everyone else have to have parts? It's like, man, and this is why I totally believe that this whole congressional black caucus crap needs to be dismantled. All of these fake gatekeepers. because all they are is just agents of destruction for us, and we can't do that, man. We just can't do that.
And yet it refused to give its black peasants from Africa who came here involuntarily in chains and had worked free for 244 years any kind of economic base. And so emancipation for the Negro was really freedom to hunger. It was freedom to the winds and rains of heaven. It was freedom without food to eat or land to cultivate, and therefore it was freedom and famine at the same time. And when white Americans tell the Negro to lift himself by his own bootstraps, they don't look over the legacy of slavery and segregation. I believe we ought to do all we can and seek to lift ourselves by our own bootstraps, but it's a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And many Negroes, by the thousands and millions, have been left bootless as a result of all of these years of oppression and as a result of a society that deliberately made his color a stigma and something worthless and degrading.
Apart from wanting to live better, which all of us want to do, to raise one's children in a better way, to be better, does the Negro in America know what he wants to be?
I'm convinced that almost every Negro in this country, other than those who have been so scarred by the system that they've become pathological in the process, and we all have to battle with pathology. Nobody really knows what it means to be a Negro unless one can really experience it. And I know we all have to battle with this constant drain of a feeling of nobodiness. But in spite of this, I think the vast majority of Negroes in this country know that they want to be people, they want to be men, they want equality, period. It just boils down to that. And we haven't been able to be people. We haven't been men because of all of the conditions that we've lived with and the syndrome of deprivation surrounding conditions, whether it's in housing, in the economic area, or in schools, or in the vicious credit practices that we face in the ghetto, and all of the problems of closed doors and constant defeats. But
now, with everything he's talking about, this is at the moment that the civil rights bill is already done deal. So that means that, oh no, we weren't done. But see, the things that they try to sell us is like once he got killed, everything was all good and everybody went back to, oh, it's all hunky-dory. No, nothing like that. Nothing like that at all. And they've been fighting hard to make sure status quo remains the same. So understand from what that is, he's given a true good breakdown of why we should have tangibles, but also gave us a good understanding because we can see from this interview to now and from what I played for you earlier, the disdain for the idea of giving foundational Black Americans tangibles. They do not want the descendants of American chattel slavery to have any type of economic base over any other group. Because if that's the case, then, we're going to get it cracking. So I'm going to play a little more of this, and that's pretty much what I wanted to play. Actually, mostly what I wanted to play
in spite of all this, I think we all know, basically, that we want to be men. We want to be persons judged not on the basis of the color of our skin, but on the basis of the content of our character.
But you know that many young Negroes don't want anything that smacks of the American white middle class. But do they want something that smacks of whatever is the black middle class? Or do they just not want bourgeois values, which after all are the basis of this democracy?
Well, I think we have to see
that's an oddly placed
what
question.
They are saying.
Yeah, that's an oddly placed question because, see, number one, why would that white man even be poised in his mind to even ask such a question? Because he's not black and he don't give a damn about black people. So why is he asking that particular question? I'll tell you why. Same reason why the optics for Joe Biden is having a bunch of black faces behind it It's the appearance. So it's like, oh yeah, here, let me get some validity with the listeners while interviewing you, because this will go down the road and this will now give me credibility. And I ask this question like I really am concerned about Negroes. But, and so that's his game. But yeah, that's why. That's a career move. Also, it's a programming suggestive move as well. So that was very slick.
I would be the first to agree that integration does not mean giving up everything that has an
That's intersectionality.
American taint, so to speak.
So intersectionality absolutely does. And that's why things have moved from integration to the thought of intersectionality, thanks to bell hooks.
I think there are certain unique things within any culture and certain cultural patterns that when you get to the process of amalgamation can really lift the whole culture. And it seems to me that integration at its best is the opportunity to participate in the beauty of diversity. I think the other thing that we've got to see is that these young people are saying that there must be a revolution of values in our country. As Jimmy Baldwin said on one occasion, what advantage is there in being integrated into a burning house? And I feel that there is a need for a revolution of values in America, because some of the values that presently exist are certainly out of line with the values and the idealistic structure that brought our nation into being. Unfortunately, we have.
Well, and see again, that's where a lot of that generation, and especially the Congressional Black Caucus today, is going wrong within their talking, because they say we. There is no we in something that you built that they possess. There ain't no we in it. The we needs to be made correct. And that ain't going to be done just by a word. That'll be done by deed. And we've been done so long that a lot of us don't know how to be done right by deed. That's why they push the forgiveness line on black folks so much, because black folks haven't been treated the way we're supposed to be treated and being made whole when we're done wrong. When we lose, we just have an L. Like, you watch other people lose the same way you do, boy, there's some repercussions and recompense. People are made whole and treble damages and then some. Yeah, good luck. Okay, we don't get that type of luxury. What is this I got here? I know there's something else I want to play for you. Let me see if this is it.
Textbook describes slavery.
Okay, so I played this before, but I want to just play this again before we get out of here, just to bring this all the way back around to the house. So we started with the farmer. We showed you how the farmer works. We showed you how the government, we've seen how the government is pushing big pharma on you. And then we also see how the government is, and especially Joe Biden, going out of his way to just get in front of black people and absolutely ramble about nothing, while making it plain to all of these white supremacists that he keeps trying to refer to and then back talking, that ain't nothing going to happen to y'all. Y'all good. It's all good. But I'm going to come in front of these black folks. I'm going to talk real loud, and then we're going to make January 6th about voting. And obviously some of them idiots fell for it. Then you had the Congressional Black Caucus come out right after that. I'm so proud to have stood with President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris and pushing this Voting Rights Act. Well, I don't know why you're proud, because it didn't get passed yet, but you're still proud. That's cool. But these people are not fighting CRT, not like I would give a crap if they did or not, but they should also be fighting the fact that people want to erase history out of history books. And, but of course, they'll try to throw out Dixiecrat and Republican and all of that. It's all white supremacist to us. So without further ado, always remember who established critical race theory in America. Never forget. #white women.
Listen to how this textbook describes slavery.
The master often had a barbecue or a picnic for his slaves. Then they had a great frolic. Even while working in the cotton fields, they sang songs. The beat of the music and the richness of their voices made work seem light.
Yikes, that's from History of Georgia, a textbook published in 1954 that was taught across junior high schools in Georgia for decades. That sort of language is part of an intellectual movement called the Lost Cause, a distorted version of American Civil War history that's been prevalent in the South for a long time. It took shape soon after the defeat of the Confederate States in the war, when Southern historians like Edward Pollard and former Confederate General Jubal Early started preserving the South's perspective through their writings. They framed the Confederate cause as a heroic defense of the Southern way of life against the overwhelming forces in the North. That narrative has a few basic tenets: the glorification of Confederate soldiers who died for a cause they believed in, the belief that slavery was a benevolent institution, and maybe most importantly, that slavery was not the root cause of the war. The Lost Cause.
Now, as well as that just being said too, slavery not being the root cause of the war. Well, who remembers that I played the Confederate soldier? So that's a lie. But nonetheless, I just needed to show you just the comparisons. Wow, what are the odds from then to now? Wow, dishonesty
Is one of the most notoriously effective efforts to rewrite history, and it was done by the losing side. So how did it become so deeply rooted in Southern memory? Blame the United Daughters of the Confederacy. The UDC was founded in Nashville in 1894 to preserve Confederate culture for generations to come. The women who made up the group descended from elite antebellum families, and they used their social and political clout to spread the pro-Southern version of the war as real history. You've probably seen their efforts to honor the Confederacy, but maybe you didn't know it was the UDC. They're the ones who covered the Southern landscape with memorials for Confederate leaders and soldiers. They used their fundraising and lobbying skills to pressure local governments into erecting monuments in prominent public spaces like courthouses and state capitals.
Installed here next to the state capitol by the United Daughters of the Confederacy.
The United Daughters of the Confederacy donated this memorial to the city back in the 30s.
They put them along roadsides and in parks. Any place that was remotely relevant to the Confederacy was memorialized. By the early 20th century, the UDC had 100,000 members and chapters spread all over the country, but mostly in former Confederate states. And there's a reason they grew so quickly during that time.
So we're talking about roughly 3 decades after the end of the war, and the Confederate veterans themselves are beginning to die off. So there is this push to find ways to commemorate it, because the big challenge by 1900 was there's a new generation of white Southerners being born, and they never experienced the war years.
That push is visible. Most of the Confederate monuments were erected during the UDC's height of influence.
There's a rhetoric around monuments that we want to get this thing built before all of that generation has died off. And the reason we want it is to teach future generations about those men.
Dr. Karen Cox wrote the book on the UDC, and I asked her if it was fair to say the group established the Lost Cause as historical fact in the South.
Oh my God, yeah. They were the leaders of the Lost Cause into the 20th century, and they made it a movement about vindication.
Just to give you an idea of how effective they were, they successfully lobbied for a Confederate memorial in Arlington National Cemetery, which U.S. President Woodrow Wilson proudly unveiled to a cheering crowd. Now that's influence, right?
Monuments are the least of what they did.
What?
I mean, they are the most visible and tangible, but the work with children was far more influential.
It turns out a central UDC objective is shaping how children think about the war and their Southern heritage. One of their most powerful tools? textbooks. Take a look at this pamphlet called A Measuring Rod for Textbooks. It was written by the illustrious Southern historian Miss Mildred Rutherford, an educator, orator, and author of Southern history textbooks. She's also very pro-slavery. The pamphlet announced the formation of a textbook review committee featuring prominent Southerners like 5 former Confederate generals. This group was committed to spreading the truths of Confederate history, so they instructed school boards to reject any textbooks that did not accord full justice to the South. And they urged libraries to deface every book in their collection that didn't measure up by writing the words "unjust to the South" clearly on its cover. This pamphlet was shared widely with school boards throughout the South, and UDC-backed committees closely monitored history books to make sure Northern influence never reached classrooms. So the core language of an approved textbook aligned precisely with that of the Lost Cause. You know, stuff like,
"The Confederacy lost in the war between the states, but Georgia never forgot to honor her Confederate soldiers."
History of Georgia was on the UDC's approved list. It was also written by E. Merton Coulter, a self-described Southern historian and historian-described white supremacist.
They understand that how you educate, who wins the writing game, who wins the battle over history, ultimately wins the war. That's the big fight for the UDC.
But their work with children went further than the classrooms. The UDC formed an auxiliary group called the Children of the Confederacy, which was designed to get kids born in former Confederate states to actively participate in their version of history. Group leaders had kids recite call and response truths from some
super racist Karens. I mean, now again, pointing out the level of influence that these women made sure they had. They're also the ones responsible for the monuments, but being responsible for the curriculum. They are the authors of critical race theory. Hands down.
Called the Confederate Catechism. Children up to the age of 18 would compete and be rewarded for memorizing long passages of Lost Cause rhetoric.
So it would be like an after-school thing, you know, like that was your club. You would go after school to the meeting of the Children of the Confederacy, and your leader might teach you songs of the South, like Dixie or other songs that were considered Southern patriotic songs. They would have them write essays, go visit the veterans, and learn this catechism.
Children were also the centerpiece of their community's monument unveilings, like this living flag at the dedication of the Stonewall Jackson Monument in Richmond. Yes, those are school children. The UDC's efforts shaped the identities of children who grew up with the Lost Cause. They made history personal, and that made their story last longer.
Generations of children learning that narrative in a variety of ways grow up to be, you know, segregationist in the 50s and 60s, because that's been drilled into them since they were children.
After World War I, the UDC started losing steam, but the damage was done. The monuments were in place, and the textbooks they wrote remained in Southern classrooms until the late 70s. And the women's group did it all without the right to vote or participate in politics.
You can still get glimmers of this Lost Cause memory of the war from people who will always choose to see it through the personal. And I think the UDC, to a great extent, was their goal.
So the next time someone says the Confederate monuments are about remembering our history, just know that that's exactly what the United Daughters of the Confederacy wants you to think.
Away down south in Dixie.
But with all of that, they want us to focus on voting rights. And those are our so-called leaders who are out there speaking for us, just like Jim Clyburn did the day after the election. He did the same exact thing. I don't want nothing. Negro, hold on. People been out in the streets every day for like months straight, screaming justice, reparations, defund the police. They ain't even talking about their own George Floyd policing act. You know, they try to like halfway bring it up. Well, we also need to, but I mean, last time they tried, they got shot down. So there's that. Ridiculous. Absolute ridiculous. Without the right to vote. Yes, Black Mama. They did all of that without the right to vote. See, a lot of people, you got to stop being emotional viewers when you ingest things. You got to learn how to slow process everything, watch everything, because everything means something. And these people, like, imagine a movie set. You have something in the background of the movie set. You may have a small little phrase or something written on a wall in the background. Somebody planned that to be. The same thing that the government does is just like Hollywood does. They will plan this stuff out. So when you see these different things getting carried out and played out, you got to be able to recognize game for the game it is. Now, also, there will be different people, different places at different times that will have different information. You got to learn how to sift through those bones. I mean, you're in bizarre world. I don't know what the hell y'all be expecting. Y'all really be expecting somebody to be coming out the sky, oh, but then say, well, here's some information. Use it for yourself. No. I'm just waiting on somebody. Why don't you do that? One of the worst things that I ever hear is why is somebody else either doing what they're doing or why aren't they doing what somebody else wants them to do? So in any event, a person doesn't understand why this person's doing what they're doing, or you're wondering why this person won't do what you have in your mind that you want them to do. That is so crazy to me. But we get in these spaces where we do end up co-signing a lot of bullshit. There's some of y'all to be co-signing some of this shit out here now. But, again, I would like just, for me, if you're going to say you're about empowerment, in a system to where we are looking to create something, the first thing you can't start doing is tearing somebody else down with inside it, and then none of us ever see you go out against somebody outside. To me, that looks funny style. You know what I mean? Like you not willing to get down over here though, like that? But you'll get down on me like that. Oh, okay, gotcha. All right. I mean, and everybody has their own different motivations. I understand that very perfectly well. But I would hope that this space isn't confused for that. Because that is not what we do here. Here we are absolutely about empowerment, educating the fam, and letting you know what we're up against in this wicked system of white supremacy, which is falling and failing and crumbling and imploding on itself. It is not a quick, super fast process, but it is a process nonetheless that is already in motion. And they're worried. So I mean, this is what should put you on alert to say, well, why are they worried? And then they're sending the congressional butter biscuit Negroes at you to sit up here and get your mind wrapped up against voting. All that does is get you into the mind of vote, vote, vote. So then when we start getting down further into the later part of the year, you actually have a candidate to vote, vote, vote for. That's why they're trying to throw Jim Clyburn at you. They know what's coming down the pike. That's why they let him talk to them. He's our whip. Yeah, whip your ass right on out of here. That's about all we want to see for old Jim there. Yeah, whip your ass right on out. You can go. We done now. Serious business. You feel me? So, Yeah, be one till the wheels fall off. Absolutely, absolutely. Said you're still here. Yes, indeed. I know I got my East Coast people over here. It's midnight. We are about to wrap things up here. But I'm glad for everybody hanging out with me tonight. This has been the midweek report, of course. Right here with Beatzilla PDX official. And I wanted to make sure I just showed you what was going on. And again, the continuation of the game. We have to keep the pressure on. And obviously, let this again be a further lesson that the evidence of the pressure that we've been putting on this system is definitely being noticed, and they're reacting in a major way. And that lets us know that this election, hashtag B1 Rise 2022, this lets us know that they're worried about our resolve come November of this year. So, we got to do what we got to do. We're going to stay on it. The brother that is looking to get to unseat Jim Clyburn, I guess I might have to get that brother on here so he can let y'all know what he has in store in his mind, because he has a vision of getting rid of the Congressional Black Caucus as it is as well. So I think I need to see if we can't get him on here and have a little conversation, let him chop it up and let him know, especially for you people out there in South Carolina or still have your residency in South Carolina and can vote, for that seat. We definitely need to get Jim Clyburn up out of there. We do not need any more boule, do nothing Negroes sitting off in offices where we need to be. Marcel, that's the brother's name, Marcel. Oh, Nika, you say you enjoy my content, very informative. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I try to always be. Black Mama, you donated to his campaign. Well, then okay. Then from what I've seen from the brother, I've been impressed. So yeah, you look out for that. So I'm gonna see if I can't. Well, we are somewhat linked up, so see what we can't pull off. But in the meantime, always remember. Oh, I almost forgot about this. That looks like Simone Sanders is getting a new job. So it looks like the Simone Sanders two-step has trickled over into 2022. Yeah. Oh man, and but again, I guess it's been a minute too. Also, we definitely got to give you a little taste of this.
I remember your laugh when I was at my worst. Let me tell you, piece of scum, I'm supported from above. Your man in my DMs while you're talking shit behind my back. All the shit you said made you look like a little bitch that had your opinion, bitch. Fuck that. What do I think of you? How I love in your face, bitch. If you only knew. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha.
Oh, just tasty tidbits. Just tasty tidbits. So, you know, if people want to know where my stance is on white supremacy, well, my stance is kind of like this.
First was the controversial Reverend Jeremiah Wright.
I say America, America's mother, America's daddy, America can eat a dick, America can lick the balls.
Let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people. No.
In that case, Babylon is fallen. Babylon is fallen. Let it fall and let us rise. You know? Oh, my Lord. Once again, family, this has been the Midweek Report with Beatzilla PDX Official. I am he. Thank you for hanging out with me this evening. And you can follow me on Instagram at beatzillapdx. You can follow me on Twitter at beatzillapdx. You can follow me on Facebook at beatzillapdx and on Patreon at beatzillapdx official and on Melanated People at Michael Beatzilla Whitmore. Of course, you can email me at OurRealTruth. That is OurRealTruth@gmail.com. OurRealTruth@gmail.com. And then, of course, if you feel so inclined to put some money in the bucket, you definitely can by way of donation at CashApp $Beatzilla PDX official. I'm sorry, I'm messing that up. CashApp $Beatzilla PDX. That's CashApp $Beatzilla PDX. And we also have PayPal. You can hit that at Zilla Muzak. That is ZILLAMUZAK. You know, Denise, so yay. Yes, indeedy. Good. you making your end of show check-in. I appreciate it, sister. I know y'all, all of my East Coast peeps out there, kicking it a little bit after midnight. I will see y'all Friday. I'll see y'all Friday for the weekly wrap-up. And, until then, family, y'all have a blessed night. Shalom, y'all.
When you know who Satan is, yes, sir, you don't have to kill him. No. The stone of truth. Yeah. See, that's what you throw. Yes, right. Allah says, had we wished to take a pastime from before, surely we would have done it. Nay, we cast truth at falsehood till we knocked out its brains. Every one of you that knows the truth, stand up and tell it from the mountaintop. Black people can't take it no more. So wherever you are on the job, in the factory, I don't care where you are. If you know the truth, stand up on the truth and tell Satan, who the hell are you to try and pick my friends? Farrakhan is God's man, and you are from the enemy of God. So to hell with you. Stand up on it like a man.